Good morning. We're almost to the new year. We're almost to conference play. I'm Chris Lee, joined by Max Barr and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16. We are here to do our last power ranking of SEC basketball for the 2024 calendar season. Gentlemen, good to be back with you after a much-needed week off, visiting in-laws in Colorado, getting a little bit of break from work. Ready to go right back at it with SEC basketball as we get into power rankings this morning. Max Barr, I'll turn it over to you to get us started, please.
All righty. Yep, we are back. Happy to be back. Hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas. Let's just kick things right off here. Get into some power rankings. Last one of the non-con. Guys, what just happened to the non-conference? I don't know. Yeah. I blinked and it's over. We're playing SEC on SEC this Saturday. Crazy stuff. Kicking it off right here at number 16. We have got the Tigers, the LSU Tigers. That is, LSU had a game this past Sunday here. It was against the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. Absolutely crushed them. Doubled them up, 110-45. Absolutely crushed them. Felt bad for the Delta Devils. But what are you going to do? Sitting here at 16, guys.
Yep, the transitive property. I don't even know what we're using anymore, but yeah, it was not kind to the Delta Devils here in SEC play or against SEC teams in non-conference play. So, yep, LSU sits in the spot. I don't really have a lot more to add. They'll have a chance for movement. They start SEC play home against Vanderbilt, at Missouri, at Ole Miss. So, a chance to move up, but what LSU is lacking is a good win so far. Well, maybe a great win. UCF's a good win. They're 9-2, but a great win LSU does not have yet, and we'll see if they can pick those up starting in SEC play.
In my mind, this is the only team that I just really can't see getting to the NCAA tournament from this league. I think the Reid injury, he was a big part of what they did. What Blake said, that the lack of marquee non-conference wins, that's not a deal breaker going forward because they're going to have opportunity, but I'm just not sure with the rest of the league they're going to have an opportunity to pick up enough wins to get there. That Vandy game is going to be a must win for them just off the jump here in a few days.
Starting out 3 games, Vandy, Mizzou, and Ole Miss. Not saying any of those teams are bad, but just some of the gauntlet that other teams are going to have to start out with. Not a bad 3-game start there for LSU. Some ground to make up. Moving on up to 15, we have got the Gamecocks of South Carolina. South Carolina did not play this past week, had the holiday off. They, of course, are on a little bit of a winning streak. Got the big Clemson OT win, and then beat a pretty decent Radford team by almost 30. So the Gamecocks have one last non-conference game tonight against Presbyterian, and then they have a tough start to SEC play, guys.
Well, I know Chris said LSU is the only team, but I think LSU still has a better path to get to the NCAA tournament than South Carolina does right now. And it's just because, I know South Carolina has the Clemson win, but, they also have the North Florida loss, which can kind of counter that a little bit. They've got, elsewhere beyond that, their best win would be East Carolina right now. So I'm not saying I think all 16 teams are still have a possibility. It's not going to happen, but I wouldn't count out LSU or South Carolina just yet, but I also don't know that I would completely put South Carolina ahead of LSU in terms of the NCAA tournament profile. But in terms of our power rankings, I can see why they're here because they do have that win over Clemson, and that's doing a lot of work for them. And as I've noted many times now, they beat Presbyterian tonight. Every SEC team will enter conference play with 10 or more wins. Never been done before.
Well, here is where I would differ or maybe push back against what Blake said just a little bit. I think that the roster gives him a better chance to get there. You've got a Colin Murray Boyles, you've got Nick Pringle, you've got some other nice supporting players there. I just think that you can make up for that North Florida loss by winning some games in the schedule. I just think this team is more capable of doing it with what its roster currently is than probably LSU is. Plus, Blake, do you ever bet against Father Lamont Paris?
No, I don't. I just I'm just trying to give LSU some props here. I don't think I would completely count them out just yet. Like based on the roster type stuff, I get what you're saying, but I mean they got 2 losses on the year to Pitt and SMU. Those aren't bad losses. They just haven't had a strong non-conference schedule, so they've just got to, they're coming off a 65-point win. So don't count out the Tigers just yet, but don't count out the Gamecocks and Father Lamont Paris either. I'm trying to get all 16 teams in, and you're over here trying to throw teams out before we even get to conference play. So, come on. My goodness. So,
I'm also trying to tee you up for something.
It's a little early for that, Chris. We'll get to that shortly.
Okay.
Who's next?
All right.
Moving on up, number 14, we have got Vanderbilt. Speaking of bad losses, a team that does not have one, as Drake continues to be undefeated, one of the last undefeated teams in the nation. Vanderbilt did not play this past week. They have a game tonight against a reeling New Orleans squad. Have a chance to go into SEC play on a 7-game win streak. The Commodores heating up, guys.
Take everything I said about Vanderbilt last week and just insert it into this spot right here because they didn't play a game. I got nothing else to add. The Commodores. Take everything I said and just repeat it because I don't know what else I'm supposed to say. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, they're sitting in a lot better place this year heading into conference play. Great metrics, all that. Yeah, there you go. That's all I got.
They're up to 35 in the net this morning. I think they've moved 5 spots without playing a game.
Yeah, well, that should tell you something right there. I got nothing against the Commodores, but please, you can't move up 5 spots without playing a game and have this be an actual reputable service here, the net rankings. But no, that's the good thing, though, right? I mean, that's why I said LSU. They're 31 spots higher than South Carolina in the net right now. So, not they can't make that up, but that just shows you where the net's at this point. So, yeah.
I believe that was because Drake beat Belmont by 20. I think that's what.
Oh, it's how much you win by absolutely matters. Yeah.
Drake moving up probably. I don't know. Just trying to understand this net. All right. Enough of that. Moving on up.
All right. Moving on up. Before we get there, hold on a second. So let's get to the people here. Mother Carol's back. She's watching live. My goodness. Getting ready for a big week. Nathan was taking bets on if we'd start before 9:04 or 8:34 or whatever it was. So he thought we'd be late. Nicholas said he's glad he didn't take that bet. Well, if you wanted to take that bet, Nicholas, I'll tell you somewhere you could have taken that bet. You could have taken it at our friends at Bet Online, who, by the way, have their SEC conference winner odds updated now. And any guesses? There are 3 teams who have better than 10-1 odds to win the SEC. 2 should be very obvious. Curious what you guys think the 3rd team is in that one.
I have an idea.
It would be Alabama.
That's my guess.
It would be Alabama. The Auburn plus 130, Tennessee plus 265, the Crimson Tide plus 425. I think Florida's getting disrespected at plus 1,000, 10-1. Kentucky also sitting right there in that spot. I think Texas A&M getting a little disrespected, 28-1 for the Aggies. But if you want to bet on any of these teams, which, by the way, LSU has the 13th best odds to win the conference. So there you have it there. But you can do that with our friends at Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting, the earliest odds, the in-game live betting. Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. Largest selection of odds on everything for football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, dodgeball, badminton. It's all there. Head to Bet Online today. Don't forget, use that promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. The game starts here.
Alrighty, moving on up to number 13 now. We have the Longhorns. They played last night, beat up on Northwestern State. Trey Johnson had a good game, his first game back from injury, missed the past 2 games. So the Longhorns are getting healthy and getting healthy at the right time. They do not have another non-conference game. They open up SEC play and a big one at Texas A&M on Saturday.
Yep. Take everything people are going to say about the non-conference schedule for Texas, 260 or 360th overall in Ken Palm. Throw it out the window because they're about to jump into probably the toughest maybe 5-game stretch to start SEC play of any team. At A&M, home against Auburn, home against Tennessee, at Oklahoma, at Florida, their first 5 games. Don't look now. The Longhorns could be 0-5 to start SEC play. I'm kind of joking there, but that's tough. I think they'll win at least, 1 or 2 of those, but hey, what if they do win? Well, they go 4-1 to start SEC play. Texas is going to be in the top 3 in the power rankings here in a couple weeks. But that shows you, though, right? That's the kind of movement that we could see in these rankings. This is like just the calm before the storm for the Longhorns. Chance to move up significantly or chance to kind of stay back here in this back range of teams.
The thing with Texas, they didn't have Tremont Mark for the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and then they just didn't have Trey Johnson for 2 games. So it's been in and out of the lineup. Those are probably your 2 key guys. So cutting Texas a little bit of slack. I know the non-conference hasn't been pretty, but they got the talent to turn it around.
Yeah, they're just a wild card. I mean, I think they've got a ton of talent that we all talked about how we could see them being an Elite 8 team at the end of the year. But I think there's like 2 kinds of computer rankings profiles. One in which you beat somebody, and that kind of carries you a little bit, and one in which you just beat the brakes off bad teams. And that's really what Texas's profile is. I mean, the NC State win there is a nice win. Had to gut that one out down the stretch. Beat St. Joe's, which beat Texas Tech, whatever that's worth, which, I mean, that's a good win. So that might be another quality win that holds up. But, I mean, the non-conference schedule is just it's been an endless parade of teams that are punchlines of schedule jokes here. So, yeah, I'm waiting to see what they do against a real team, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Wow.
I'll tell you what.
A real team. My goodness.
Well, okay, they had a couple
Holy
of
cow.
You know what I mean.
They played
You know
Syracuse. They played NC State, St. Joe's, UConn, Ohio State, New Mexico State. Real teams. What is this?
Okay,
It's in
they
Space
lost to
Jam.
2 of those real teams.
Not playing the Monstars. What are we doing here? Come on. All right. Let's
I'll tell you what, though. If they just split those home games, the first 2 home games, SEC
the
play for
Connecticut.
Texas,
Yeah,
Auburn
although they lost to
and
Alabama.
Tennessee. They
yeah,
start
they
Auburn
beat-
and Tennessee at home.
That's going to give them a huge boost in every metric there is if they just win one of those first 2 home games. Yep.
And we move on. Number 12, Ole Miss. This is the biggest faller. They were 9 last week in our rankings, coming at 12 after their poorest performance of the year, a bad one at Memphis. Lose by 17, didn't lead for a second. Mikhail Brown-Jones gets ejected after throwing a punch. Bad Saturday for the Rebels. But, hey, maybe you get that one out of the way, and you got a home game against Georgia to start SEC play on Saturday as the non-conference has been concluded for the Rebels.
Yeah, that was not the look you wanted heading into SEC play, I don't think. Because we were having the conversations about the comparisons to last year, and we were wondering, is this going to be kind of a similar setup where you just have a team that really does a great job in the non-conference against a bunch of opponents that, quite frankly, they should do a good job against. And then if they start to get into these kind of scenarios, road games, tough games in SEC play, they're going to be decided by 3 or 4 points here or there. Can they make the plays to do it? And so I thought it was a disappointing, performance at Memphis, given what we had just seen Mississippi State do against that team. But, you could also say Memphis' back was kind of against the wall. Tough spot for them. But, yeah, I don't know. I think Ole Miss just might be one of those teams. And I know they went and just walloped Louisville on the road to start December. But I think they may be one of those teams that they really need to take advantage of those those home games. Because I think if you look at their road slate, at Arkansas, at Alabama, at Mississippi State, at Missouri, at LSU, at South Carolina, so not terrible, at Vanderbilt. So actually, their road schedule, they're getting some of the bottom teams, at least in our rankings, on the road.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think Ole Miss the kind of team right now with a profile of a, an 8-10 type season in SEC play. But you know what? That's probably good enough to get you in the tournament. So
I watched a little bit of the Memphis game. It's at Memphis. By the way, I'm not sure how Memphis is this low on all the computers with all the wins against really good teams they've got, but they are. I know.
Computers don't watch the game.
That's
they
right.
They don't use their eyes. They only use their – what do they use?
I don't know.
Use their RAMs.
Ones and zeros.
They don't use their eyes. They use their RAMs. So,
well,
yeah.
My eyes told me that they didn't defend very well as I watched that game. And that was a concern last year. I think interior defense this year really going to be a concern. I mean, and look, this is not 1980s and 90s. Everybody doesn't have an enforcer like they used to. But I think that's a kind of a gaping hole. If Memphis had hit a few more free throws, it would have been a little bit more lopsided. But I just felt like Ole Miss was never really in that game for any meaningful stretch.
Yeah, one weird kind of trend that with Ole Miss is the lack of rebounding now. Moussa Cisse just had 11 rebounds against them. His season high last year was 8. He only got at least 8 rebounds one time the entire year last year. He's already done it 5 times in 13 games for Memphis. So I don't really get the drop off of rebounding for Ole Miss past year and a half or so. It's kind of weird. But they're going to need to pick that up as they have Georgia on Saturday. All right. Speaking of Georgia, what a nice segue. Didn't even plan that. Number 11, the Bulldogs. Played last night, back-to-back Sunday games. They played Charleston Southern last Sunday. A little bit iffy. Weird Sunday game. Same thing here with South Carolina State. They're down at halftime. Battle back. I think it was 17 points, I believe, guys. 17 points they come back from. They're trying to work Deshane Montgomery into the lineup now. He's getting 20, 25 minutes a game, shaking things up. Looks a little bit choppy at times. Georgia, you're at 11.
Yeah. Again, how much you win by and trailing at halftime, like that's going to – I think they may have moved down a spot. I don't remember in our rankings from last week.
One spot, I think.
One spot. Yeah, like that's where we are. They still have the good win against St. John's. They're going to go into SEC play with 12 wins, and you'll absolutely take that. Because remember, I mean, Mike White took over just a complete mess. 16-16 first season. They won 20 games last year. Now they've already got 12 wins. But we've said it many times. I think their first half of the schedule is rough. At Ole Miss, home against Kentucky, home against Oklahoma, at Tennessee, home against Auburn, at Arkansas, at Florida, home against South Carolina, at Alabama. And like the back half still includes games, home against Mississippi State, at A&M, at Auburn, at Texas. Like I think Georgia just on paper has to have one of the tougher schedules out there. And so, yeah, I think that could either be a good thing or a bad thing because I think this Georgia team has already notched a good win, which will help on the resume. But outside of that one win against St. John's, they don't have a whole lot right now. So they're one of those teams that I think really needs to, and that's the good thing. They're playing a tough schedule, so they will be able to make up ground, and those good wins are going to basically, outweigh any losses that they have as long as they aren't to, a team that winds up being 3-15 in SEC play or something like that. So I think Georgia still trending towards the NCAA tournament. It's just you want to see them play a little bit better.
I give them a little bit of a pass for yesterday. I mean, really since the opener against Tennessee Tech when they had to, get that win in an ugly fashion, they've been pretty good. I mean, the only blemish has been the loss to Marquette, which is a really good, maybe Elite 8, Final 4 level team. A lot of teams have a hiccup like Georgia had yesterday this time of the year. You're just kind of bored. You're waiting to play the real teams. You're in the middle of Christmas break. To me, like other than Auburn,
Chris is he's knocking everybody. He's just out there. The SEC, they don't play any real teams. They're playing a bunch of AI bots, I think is what Chris is saying.
I don't think that's what I said, but carry on
Delta
with
Devils.
your narrative.
You heard it.
How many teams other than Tennessee and Auburn haven't had like a hiccup of one of those somewhere against somebody? And I don't mean by hiccup, I don't mean loss, but like a game where you just kind of mailed it in for 30 minutes and eked one out. Or in South Carolina's case, lost it.
It's there's a few teams.
I don't think it's a lot. Like,
No.
I don't think it's as many as you would think, but I see what you're saying.
Point is, a lot of teams have these. I still think, to me, the differentiator for them is Ace and Ewell. I just don't think that a lot of teams have one of those guys. I think I might have been the high man on Georgia in the power rankings. I could be wrong, but still think that's a tournament team.
By the way, it's pointed out here, Tennessee had one of those last game too. Don't not put them in that category. They were struggling against MTSU. So,
but I mean, that's not a.
Well, but
they won 28. They won 28 in Ken Palm, and they won it by 18.
They're the number one team in the AP poll. I mean,
so now you penalize them for how good they are. Okay.
What?
Yes.
No, you just said that none of teams other than Auburn and Tennessee have not had these kind of bad, sloppy type play. But I mean, if they're down at half or whatever, you gotta count that in, right? No matter who they're playing.
I guess they were down on half. Hey, buddy, I was on vacation when that happened. I saw
what in the world? All right. You get him. Get him, BTC pack there. Get him. Yeah. Get him. All right. Number 10.
They weren't down with 12 minutes left like Georgia was.
The thing I will say real quick on Georgia, they do their first 2 home games. They will probably either be a pick 'em or favored. They have a home game against Kentucky, home game against Oklahoma. That's 2 teams where they're not in the bottom. They're not in the top, 2 or 3 winnable games. If they get both of those, Georgia beats Kentucky, Oklahoma, rattles off the first 2 home games. I think we're having a different conversation. All right, moving on up. Number 10, top 10, Mizzou, the Tigers. Missouri did not play since that close Illinois game. I'm telling you, this is one of the teams that I disagree with the computers. Ken Palm's got him at 50th. I say you've lost your mind thinking this team is 50th. They're a second half meltdown away from beating Memphis, and they're 3 points away from beating Illinois. Got a win over Kansas. Give me a break. I like the Tigers. Put their number here at 10.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is one where the non-conference strength of schedule, it stands out. And I think this is another one of those teams like Texas, they're combined at the hip, although the difference is that Missouri actually has a top tier win. And like you said, they're a couple plays away from beating Illinois, lead Memphis for a good chunk of that game. And so, how different could it be for them if they just added one more of those wins, right? If you won one of those games. But they didn't, and they beat Kansas, so that kind of makes up for it. Now, that's the thing, right? If we were looking at Missouri and they lost that Kansas game, then we'd be sitting here saying, ooh. They're a team that doesn't really have a lot of room for error in SEC play. But now, I think it is a team. They got to start at Auburn on Saturday. That's a brutal start. But then they come back home for LSU, Vanderbilt, back-to-back home games. And so, you got to handle your business at home. We talk about Missouri or any other team in the SEC. You got to win your home games this year because it's going to be a grind on the road. There's no question about it. And so for them, when I talk about teams that I think can get into the NCAA tournament at 8 and 10, Missouri is going to be an interesting case just like Texas is because they're going to need more of those quality wins in SEC play because their strength of schedule in the non-conference is what it is. But the good news, you're going to have plenty of opportunities for those quality wins. So you just got to win games. As simple as that. So they got a tough SEC slate, though, when you look at that first, I don't know, outside of those 2 home games against maybe LSU and Vanderbilt, who are lower in our rankings, which are not easy games by any means. They got a tough slate there pretty much the entire way. So.
Well, the strength of schedule may not be great, but they played 3 games against teams that would probably be, top 8, not overall, but 8 seeds or better in the NCAA tournament. They were right there in all of them, won one of them against Kansas. And again, I kind of lean on when I'm close. Who have you beaten? Did you beat a heavyweight? That Kansas win still carries a lot of weight with me. I know it was at home. But, had Illinois game was a 1-possession game, neutral site, could have won it, didn't. The Memphis game you talked about. I mean, I still like their talent. I think we all do. Computers don't love them for whatever reason, but yeah.
Well, don't get me started on that.
Number 9, Razorbacks. Arkansas trending up into the top 10. I just checked. There's still no status on Johnell Davis for tonight's game against Oakland, but the last statement I can find was from the 22nd, which is 8 days ago now, and John Calipari said that his status for tonight's game is up in the air. That was 8 days ago, so I'm not sure. They might rest him, get him even more rest before Saturday's game at Tennessee, or you might see him. I'm not sure. Either way, Arkansas starting to get healthy, and you can reflect that here in the rankings moving up to number 9.
Yep, that's why they're moving up. They're getting their full group back, hopefully, like we said. It's just been I don't think there's a team in the SEC that's not had their full lineup for, as few games as Arkansas has had. It's just been brutal, as we talked about. So now I think if they get everybody back, ready to go, hopefully they win the game against Oakland tonight. John Calipari, probably a few nerves this morning, getting ready for that one. Yeah, so I think Arkansas trending in the right direction, as we said. Everybody knows I was the high man on Arkansas during the year. And it just, again, there were some ups and downs in non-conference play, but a lot of that I think was based on the roster, just not having everyone. Some of that was based on the offensive limitations at times, I think, within Cal's offense. But defense has been there. It's been better than I thought it would be. And I think the addition of Jonas Adu is going to make a huge difference, now that he's back on the floor playing regular minutes. So, yep, I think the Hogs are in a fine spot heading into this game against Oakland and heading into a brutal start in Knoxville on Saturday.
Max, is the Davis injury still the wrist?
Yep, same injury.
Okay. I mean, that's been lingering for how long now?
Since the summer. Preseason.
I mean, is that going to magically get well with more ball?
I don't know. I guess they're trying to give him more rest.
Yeah,
I mean, an opportunity.
Look, Dr. Barr, please weigh in with your professional opinion.
They haven't lost a game since November 28th. They played pretty well. I was impressed with the way they handled the Michigan game. Beat Miami on the road for whatever that's worth. Probably not much with Jim Larinaga throwing in the white flag this week. But, yeah, I'm just – that's still what concerns me is I think that just the Davis thing, that doesn't feel like it's getting any better, and that worries me.
Probably the game I'm most interested about tonight is this one, the Arkansas-Oakland.
Yeah.
I really interested to see how Arkansas looks kind of putting a cap on the non-conference. Okay, speaking of caps on the non-conference, Oklahoma did so with a 22-point win against Prairie View A&M. Prairie View didn't have one of their best players, and Oklahoma kind of took a while to pull away there. Finally pulled away and won by 22, but a little bit of a weird game. Oklahoma now 13-0, one of the last undefeated teams in the country, and they're here at number 8. Just goes to show how good the league is and how much strength of schedule, which I believe Oklahoma right now in KenPom is 342nd. So just goes to show how much that is factoring in this year.
Yeah, the noted Oklahoma haters here, as we've been told. I'm just kidding. We don't hate Oklahoma. It's just, this is just kind of where we are with a bunch of these teams. And we said it last week. It's just they've beaten everybody in front of them. What else can you ask a team to do other than the fact that they've won every game to this point? But, these are power rankings, and I think just based on our composite, there are still teams we think that even despite having losses are still a little bit ahead of Oklahoma. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like we said, if you're the top 8 team, you're the number 8 team in the SEC, you're still probably a 5 seed or so. So, nothing wrong with that. So, but they got a great opportunity on Saturday at Alabama. But, hey, they completely exceeded expectations. I don't think any of us would have had Oklahoma at 13-0 heading into conference play this year. I would not have, 100%, not even close. I thought they probably would have lost a couple games here. Those neutral court games where you had, Arizona, Providence, like the game against Michigan. 3 months ago, we probably would have said, that's going to be a struggle. They're going to lose some of those games. They didn't. 13-0 heading into league play. So, Incredible start for the Sooners.
The nation's longest active winning streak, according to Ken Palm. I guess the issue is you've only got one win over a team that would probably be in the NCAA tournament today. If we selected the field, that's Michigan, which I think is a really good team. Arizona, according to computers, a good win, but that's a 6-5 team that hasn't beaten anybody. So we'll see how that one ages. But hey, they'll have plenty of opportunity in the SEC. And you go win 8-9 games, getting into the tournament is going to be no problem for the Sooners.
Arizona.
Bracket matrix. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
That is the weirdest thing I've seen.
Can we please, if we want to bring up the computer nonsense, Arizona is 6-5. They're 24 in Ken Palm. Their best win is against Davidson, who I got nothing against Davidson, but that's their best win right now, right? Davidson's 10-3. That's great, but they've lost to Wisconsin by 30, or not, excuse me, lost by Wisconsin 15.
By 15.
Okay. They lost to Duke by 14, Oklahoma by 5, West Virginia in overtime, 3 to UCLA. So the fact that they're losing close games is helping them. But, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Preseason top 10, were they not?
well, preseason out the window at this point.
Yeah.
I think Tommy Lue is a good coach, but I'm just pointing out the
I'm
inconsistencies.
trying to help the
with our-
Sooners a little bit. You're just raining on my parade.
I'm not. I'm just pointing out the fact that the computers are not seeing what they're RAM. You know? All right, Max, bracket matrix.
Bracket matrix has Oklahoma as the last 4 seed right now, flirting with a 5. So
Yeah.
they're 8th in
No
the
shame
power
in that.
rankings. No shame. You're a 4 seed, 5 seed, whatever you want to slice it. There you go, Sooners. All right, top 7 now. We have Mississippi State. Mississippi State at 7. I believe they were 6 last week, but they fall to 7 after not playing. I believe that is more due to other teams playing very well. But Mississippi State, I mean, what do you want to say? You can use that transitive property for Memphis now because Memphis just played the 2 Mississippis back to back. One team crushed Memphis. One team got crushed by Memphis. Mississippi State is the one that did the crushing, and they are on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-game win streak heading into tonight's game against Bethune-Cookman to wrap up non-conference play.
Trivia note: who's the coach for Bethune-Cookman?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to look. I don't know. Chris, do you know?
No idea.
Well, this guy,
Give me a hint.
noted basketball guy, but also a noted actor. Reggie Theus,
Oh, really?
the coach. Bethune.
No clue.
Yes.
That's not his first stop, is it?
No, he's been a lot of spots. Yeah. Cal State, Northridge, New Mexico State. So, yep. All right. I don't have a lot to add on Mississippi State. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Like it's the same kind of. It's like the bat signal. Like anytime
There
we
he
just
is.
like you don't see Carlos until we say Mississippi State, and then all of a sudden this guy just pops in out of nowhere.
Yep.
So I agree, Carlos. Get on these guys. Who would rank Mississippi State at 7?
Well, it wasn't
did.
me.
I had him at 7 this week, just as a note. So
I believe I had him at 7 as well.
I think you could make the case that they're a top 5 team in the league. I don't think it's crazy. I think some of the computers do. I think you look at the resume. I think you could make a case that their wins are top 5 in the league so far at Memphis. The demolition of Pitt and what was one of the league's probably 3 or 4 best wins, winning at SMU. I mean, I think my concern with them might be scoring outside of Josh Hubbard, but I'm not sure Claudel Harris couldn't be that guy for them on a given night, or even Riley Kugel. So I look at this team, and just to me, there aren't a lot of cracks. I think 7 might have shorted them a spot or 2. I mean, I could have easily ranked them 5 and maybe even 4.
I think that's going a little too far with 4, but I agree with you.
4 might be. 4 might be. It feels like there's a clear top 4 right now. Fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Might get some pushback from Max on that. I think 7, 6, and 5 are all very close. I will say, for what it's worth, there's a separation in the votes from Oklahoma and Arkansas, and then jumping up to 7-6-5. 7-6-5 are all separated by one vote. So tight group here. Moving up, number 6. I believe this was my doing. I'm sorry, Hail State. I believe this was my fault because I placed this team much higher. The Aggies, Texas A&M, still getting no respect. I'll be honest. I voted Texas A&M 5. Yep, 5 I did. Because when you look at what this team has done lately, they just keep rattling off win after win after win. I've never seen a team beat Creighton, Rutgers, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, and Purdue in a row and then have it get dismissed as much as Texas A&M has. They have now the 6th ranked defense in the nation. Okay, 6th in the nation. 2nd best defense in the SEC right now. Wade Taylor is back and healthy after he sat out a game with, I believe it was a groin injury. He comes back to get a double-double on points and assists. This team is the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the nation by over 3%, which is just incredible. Texas A&M, not getting enough respect, in my opinion.
I'm going to bring up Carlos's note here as it ties into these two teams because we brought up bracket matrix a minute ago, and we've had these 3 teams jumbled together for a while now. Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. Mississippi State is, according to bracket matrix, the last number 3 seed right now. The average seeding 3.75. Texas A&M is the first number 4 seed. Average seeding 3.84. You're talking about 0.9 that separates these two. And I just don't think there's a huge separation with these two teams right now. And so I get it. You can have the discussion on which should be ranked above it. Ultimately, it means nothing. These are just our rankings. But, so I think that's what's interesting about these two teams is that there have been different conversations about these two in recent years in non-conference play. We talked about A&M missed opportunities, losing games, and just not having enough of maybe that non-conference strength that they needed, to be. Although last year was a little bit different. They did play a pretty tough non-conference schedule last year, but they lost quite a few of those games. And then for Mississippi State, I feel like there have been times in Mississippi State where the conversation's been about the strength of the non-conference schedule. In recent years, I may be wrong about that. Yeah, going back to last year, non-conference was 170 strength of schedule, something like that. It's not bad, but 277 the year before that. So, but these two have they've won a lot of. They've looked really good, and they've won some good games, and that's kind of the thing that I think keeps them jumbled together. But I don't have a strong opinion, to be honest with you, on which team should be ahead of the other. I think that they're just right there next to each other. So
bracket projections this time of year, and I'm not meaning to poop on Carlos's comment here. I just think they're super hard to do because imbalanced schedules. A 1-point loss to a top 5 team doesn't really help you in the brackets. And some of these teams have picked up some good wins. Some of them haven't played teams to get good wins. I look at quality of team. A&M and Texas A&M are almost kind of like a 1A, 1B situation. But I'll tell you something interesting. And the operative phrase here is considering who they've played. Has anybody played better ball in the league since Thanksgiving than A&M?
I'd say Auburn.
Yeah, although Auburn, I think, the tougher part of the schedule was before Thanksgiving and before. And I'm making that very specific note for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
They're up there. They're as hot as you can get right now.
Yep.
So first 3 games for A&M: home against Texas, at Oklahoma, home against Alabama. So this could go one of 2 ways. We'll learn a lot about the Aggies.
Before we get to the top 5, Max.
Before
we get into it, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm sitting here and, we're having this great discussion about SEC basketball, entering conference play and all that stuff, right? It's just tremendous discussion. But I look over to my left here, and it's Barry the Wonder Dog. He's over here laying down. And you know what I see? I see his tail wagging. He's dreaming. Clearly having a good dream. Tail's wagging. He's after something. I feel like he's chasing something because he gets excited when he has those dreams. The tail starts wagging. One could say Barry is on the move. And sure enough, if you want to be on the move as well, Sanders Logistics will help you get there. And, I can't confirm or deny that Barry may be dreaming about Sanders Logistics, to be honest with you. Wouldn't be shocked at all. As many times we mention it here on the show, many times he's sitting here hearing the words Sanders Logistics out of my mouth. He knows that Sanders Logistics is formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving, a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. That's where he lives. Their team of professional movers are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving. That'll get your tail wagging right there, huh? That'll get something wagging. Efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. Whether you are moving across town or across the country, Sanders Logistics has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com, and your tail and many other things could be wagging on your way cross-country, wherever you want to go, with Sanders Logistics.
Very nice. Very nice. Top five. The Cats start us off at number 5. No game since that Ohio State one. Sour taste in the mouth of Big Blue Nation through the holidays. They have a chance to right the ship tomorrow night against a decent Brown team at home. But certainly not the way the Cats wanted to head into the holiday off that Ohio State game.
Yeah, take everything I said about Kentucky last week, insert it here. They didn't play, and yeah, like you mentioned, Max, they're coming off a 20-point loss, misleading in terms of the number, but yeah, I think that's...
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Not going to look good on the net. So why they dropped in the metrics, because they lost by 20. They lost by 18. It's probably a little bit different, but not the case. And so the Cats sitting here still in the top 5. That's ahead of where people thought they would be in probably your SEC power rankings heading into conference play. But slice it any way you want. A good non-conference slate for Kentucky. Did some good work picking up 2 very good wins, Duke and Gonzaga. I know Gonzaga, we're going to have the same discussion. They're 9-4, but still, look, I mean, it's just the Duke win is still pulling some weight here, and so is the incredible comeback against the Zags. But yeah, Kentucky in a fine spot, metrics-wise. I think eye test-wise, there's some things you can pick apart from that Ohio State game that we talked about. That may concern you heading into SEC play, but we'll find out. They got a tricky start too. Home against Florida, at Georgia, at Mississippi State, home against A&M, home against Alabama, their first 5 games.
The computers have dropped them about a millimeter behind Mississippi State and A&M in that pack at the top, so they'd say they're 7th. I mean, I still think the wins over Duke and Gonzaga away from home are pretty loud. That was the most, that Ohio State game, having watched Ohio State play Auburn the week before, it still may be the most head-scratching thing I've seen in the league this year. But, yeah, I think you have to give them some grace for what they've done otherwise. And I guess you can say, if you want to push back on that, who was the home game right before that where they struggled?
Colgate,
that one. But, I mean, it's also a time of the year where some weird stuff happens. You're doing exams if exams are actually a thing anymore. And
exams. Can we just get rid of exams? Come on. We got
Sure.
SEC basketball. Unprecedented season. We don't need the exams this year. I think you let these guys take the exams off this season. There's too much at stake. All right? Yep. I'm all about the academics, as you know. But also, ball is life. And so let these guys do their thing. Come on.
Yeah, I voted Kentucky 5th in our preseason, our first preseason rankings, and I think Cats fans would say, hey, if you're telling me in the beginning of the season that we're going to be 5th heading into SEC play, I'll take that. I'll take being top 5 in the SEC. If you want to call it top 6, top 7, whichever way you want to rank them, I think that's a successful non-conference. So there you have it. Moving in to the top 4. Now, I will say,
public service announcement. Go to school, kids. All right, number 4.
I will say there was a little bit of separation here in the votes now. We had a big gap, and now 4 and 3 were separated by just 1 vote. Very tight. Alabama is here at number 4. Just 1 vote behind. We can just group these together. 1 vote behind number 3, Florida. These two teams are playing some of their best basketball. I will say, though, about Alabama, we had a little bit of an injury concern. Derrion Reid re-injured his ankle in practice this past week. He was in a boot, did not play against South Dakota State. So now they are down. I don't know if you want to call it two starters with Wrightsell and Reid, but two very impactful players for the Tide, not available right now. So, we've been talking about Arkansas as one of the most, injury-ridden teams. They don't have their full lineup. They just can't get it together. Like Alabama's starting to fall into that also with a few of these injuries. They didn't have Youngblood. Now they have them. They had Reid. Now they don't. Wrightsell's out. So I'm cutting the Tide some slack. Nonetheless, they put up 105 on South Dakota State and shot 55 threes.
Well, I'm not going to say that they have an easy start to SEC play, but honestly, when I compare it to most SEC schedules, home against Oklahoma, at South Carolina, at A&M, home against Ole Miss, at Kentucky, home against Vanderbilt, home against LSU. On paper, that's not bad. In a gauntlet like this, like the home games are ones where I think they're going to be significant favorites in some of those home games. Not all of them, some of them. And then I think they got a very winnable road game at South Carolina. At A&M, at Kentucky will be difficult, but, look, they're still ranked ahead of both of those teams in our power rankings right now. So I think Alabama has gotten better. Early in the non-conference play, we were talking about they're a little up and down, but I think still the ceiling for this team is Final Four. If they have the pieces, obviously they're not going to have Wrightsell, but, Reid comes back, he's fine. Everybody else, I still think they can make it to the Final Four. I think they're that good. And as you said, just look at what they can do offensively. They're not even shooting the ball well overall still. I mean, maybe the game plan is just to put up 55 threes a game. I'd be okay with that. Alabama's they're fine. So,
yeah, I think the debate was always going to be Alabama and Florida, 3 and 4. Where did you rank each one? To me, I tend to lean more on what have you done. I know Florida's unbeaten. Both of them have won 5 games away from home, by the way. But between the injuries, the roster fluctuations, with all that, and frankly, leaning a little bit on history, what Alabama did last year. I mean, you'd beaten Houston, Illinois, Creighton. To me, when I get in the spot, I'm choosing between teams. I want to see, have you beaten some heavyweights yet? And that's where I differentiated between the two.
Yeah, moving up to Florida real quick. Florida coming off of back-to-back home games. They just played yesterday against poor Stetson. Oh, that game was that was rough for the Hatters of Stetson. I didn't know that was the Hatters. What the heck is a Hatter? Anyways,
Stetson hats.
45 points for Stetson, 45 for North Florida the game before that. Back-to-back season lows for those two. Florida's defense continues to not get enough credit. The trio of guards continues to be underrated. The Gators, you're not underrated here at Southeastern 16, number 3 in our power rankings, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I rank Florida ahead of Alabama. I think what Florida's done is, so impressive. I don't know how else to say it. I know they haven't played the same schedule, but again, you put it in front of them. They've beaten everybody there, and I just think the difference between Florida and Oklahoma, because they say, well, they both, look at the difference. Well, Florida just went out and just steamrolled everybody except for North Carolina, which they won by 6. So, the Gators they look fantastic. One of the best offensive teams, one of the best defensive teams, and again, we'll see. We'll see if it holds up, right? Because at Kentucky, home against Tennessee, at Arkansas, first 3 games. So, great tests for the Gators, but I tend to think that when you got great guard play, it can take you a long way. And Florida has just elite guard play, and they got a front court rotation that has just been, I think, exceeded expectations. So, I think Florida kind of feels like the total package to me a little bit, just based on watching them play. And I would not be shocked. Go to our friends at BetOnline, throw a few dollars down maybe on the Gators as an SEC winner, perhaps. So,
yeah, I said earlier, most teams have had a bump in the road somewhere. Florida is one of those teams that you can argue probably hasn't. North Carolina won that one basically won't count as a road environment, but Charlotte basically is when you're playing North Carolina. North Carolina came within 6 of them. Other than that, nobody's come within 13. Closest loss was it South Florida? No, it was Florida State on the road, way back in the middle of November. They have just beaten everybody else to smithereens.
Yep. And now we have a unanimous 2-1. I'm not going to lie. As unanimous was too, but I flirted with putting Florida up. I did. I wanted to be a rebel and rank the Gators at 2. I didn't pull the trigger. Number 2 are the Vols. Tennessee, I think they were number 2 the past, 4 power rankings? They've been stuck at 2 for a while here. They played Middle Tennessee on Monday, and it was looking rough for about 25-ish minutes. But then Tennessee, shuts them down in the second half, ends up winning by 18. Not the best result, but also you can't. I mean, it was a bad 20 minutes. They haven't had a bad 20 minutes, and I don't know how long.
Yeah, I don't. What else do we say about these top couple teams? And I know we got to speed up. We always bog down a little bit early on, but yeah, I mean, Tennessee's unbeaten. They'll probably still be number 1 in the AP poll. That's fine. But we're talking about the 2 best teams in the country, potentially 2 of the top 3 teams, 2 of the top 4 teams, whatever you want to say. To this point, Tennessee and Auburn have been just that. And yeah, so, I mean, I don't know what else to add here. Like, Tennessee is a well-oiled machine. They're going to play Norfolk State on Tuesday. And then it'll be time for SEC play. So,
yeah, 1 and 2 in my mind, easiest thing on the board. I know the AP polls got the teams reversed, but you look at what Auburn's done, and it's, to me, body of work is incredible. Both elite teams, but to me, I didn't have to put any thought into putting Auburn 1 and Tennessee 2.
I mean, Tennessee's strength of schedule right now on KenPom is 149. Florida's is 200, not too far behind. I think there's less of a gap than we think there is. I think Florida is right there, maybe a half point behind Tennessee. I think they're right there.
I'm just not willing to go there.
Odds. Why not? I guess let's have this debate.
Well, okay.
Yeah. This will wind up being 15 minutes, but I know us. Like
what has Tennessee done that's so much better than Florida?
What's holding you back on Florida?
I think the win at Illinois on their floor was the most impressive win. But still, I mean, they had their stars in foul trouble. That building was lit that night. The way they just beat the brakes off Baylor. I mean, right now, Florida's got, 1, maybe 2 wins over teams that make the NCAA tournament. That's at, the semi-away game over North Carolina, and an Arizona State team that the net really loves that nobody else does. I just think that, and I don't know. You put these
Tennessee's
teams on a neutral floor. Well, I know, but you put these teams on neutral floor right now. Tennessee's about a 3-point favorite. I just think,
according to who?
I'm not saying it. Computers.
Well, hold on a second, computers.
Which track pretty well with betting lines, in case you haven't noticed.
I don't care about betting lines. I care about what I see, and I just don't think there's much you can knock Florida for at this point.
Why, no, but if you want to use separators, the computers all have them higher. Tennessee, that is, and you look at the body of work and the resume, and Tennessee's is better. I'm not saying it can't be close. I'm just saying right now, if you were trying to make a pick based on the evidence, I don't have a great argument that you could put Florida ahead of Tennessee.
But I don't think that was the argument here. I think you made it. You said it was definitive, like without a doubt, like you would put Tennessee ahead of. And I don't think it's that definitive anymore. Now, I agree there maybe was a point in time, but like I agree I would still put Tennessee ahead of Florida, but I don't think it's definitive by any means anymore. Like I think Florida's been that good, and so has Tennessee, but I don't think there's much of a gap as maybe some may think there is to this point.
No,
but again,
hey, look, they
Florida
play
could go lose. Yeah, they play next Tuesday, so we'll figure this out. But
right,
I mean,
I put a little bit more deference to body of work when it's close at this point. than I mean, like to me, there are just some teams every year, and I'm not saying this is going to be the case with Florida, but they just beat the tar out of helpless teams, and run up points in the computers that way. And then when they start playing the teams that can get in their face a little bit, it starts to come back down to earth a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to Florida. I don't think it will. I'm just giving Tennessee a little bit more benefit of the doubt based on who it's beaten.
That's fine. I mean, look,
Florida
could start
Florida's
0-3 in conference play.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, right? They could lose at Kentucky, lose at Arkansas, and lose at home to Tennessee. They could be 0-3, and we could be sitting here saying, uh-oh. But, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they got a great chance, but, Tennessee's going to reel off some wins too here early potentially. So I don't know. Again, we're having fun with this, but I don't think there's a huge difference necessarily.
Florida's beaten 4 top 100 teams. Tennessee has only beaten 3 top 100 teams. Now, Virginia just fell out at 101, but, I mean, they each have 2 good wins. And I think, honestly, you could say right now, Florida has looked better the past week or so after Middle Tennessee was up at halftime. I don't know. I think it's a good debate.
We get to settle it next Tuesday.
We ready to move on to number 1? Shocker. I wonder who is number 1. It is the Auburn Fighting Tigers. Auburn did not play this past week. They are sitting on a nice pre-holiday win against Purdue, where Purdue never really had a chance. They do play tonight to wrap up the non-conference against King Rice's Monmouth team, not one of his better Monmouth teams. They're sitting right around 275, depending on what computer you look at. But then Auburn starts SEC play on Saturday, home against Missouri, then 2 not terrible road games, Texas and South Carolina, to kick things off, guys.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but if you look at Auburn's start to SEC play, it's going to be, it's going to be brutal for everybody, but I don't necessarily hate the setup for the Tigers in the first half of the SEC schedule based on the home and aways. But we'll see, again, because it's what they've done to this point. I think they're the best team in the country. And just, again, you look at all the numbers. Like, they have done things that we have not seen a team do in a long time in terms of the number of quad 1 wins they've had. They have a top 10 strength of schedule. They're doing all of this against that. Best offense in the country. They're just a ridiculous offense at this point. And so, yeah, Auburn number 1 here. Didn't really give it another thought, to be honest with you.
The knock on them a year ago was, can they win away from Auburn? They had beaten Houston, Iowa State, Purdue, Memphis, Ohio State, all away from home. They are number 1 until someone takes it from them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's out yet, but I did a full hour-long breakdown on the War Report with Ike Jones. Auburn went through the entire SEC schedule for Auburn, and I'm not going to lie, as we're going through it and we're making predictions for every game, we finished up the schedule and we're like, oh my gosh, we just predicted Auburn to go 16-2. And we really broke it down. I said they'll probably drop the road game at Alabama. And then in the beginning of March, they have a back-to-back road slate at Kentucky, at A&M. So you might drop one of those. And then, I don't know, college basketball is college basketball. This is a very long year, especially in February. You can get real mentally drained and tired, and you can have a bad game. So, maybe call it 15-3. But when we were talking a few weeks ago, what record is gonna win the SEC? I think it's right back to 15-3 in my eyes.
Yeah, I think if there's one team in an unprecedented year like this for the SEC that can separate itself, I think it's Auburn. But that's also based on what we've seen to this point. And now things change because you start playing these kind of games every single game night. And so that can change for a team. But right now, to this point, if I have to make that argument, I'm making it for Auburn. And that's probably the only team I'm making it for, to be honest with you. And I mean, maybe not that far off for teams like Tennessee or Florida. Alabama gets healthy. Texas A&M, Mississippi State, here we go. Kentucky, It's just this is where we are. So, thank goodness we don't have to do power rankings that just involve non-conference games anymore. We actually get to do power rankings where their conference games will have been played, and then we can start to separate. Oh, can you imagine the overreaction we're going to have with some of our rankings next week when teams win or lose on Saturday? Yeah. These rankings are going to just become a complete – I mean, they're going to become a mess next week. We're going to say, oh, this team moved 14 spots because they won this game or that. Is Missouri going to move up to number 1 next week if they beat Auburn? Like, very good chance.
Possible.
So it's just this is what we're gonna do, but that's the fun of it. So
back to Auburn on the way out. It's hard to even find a concern with them. I mean, it really is. I think with every team, just about every team, you can say, all right, this could go this way, and that could be a concern. Like now that we know Janai Broom has a bionic shoulder, because I was worried about that last time I did these with you. That shoulder injury, he plays through it. Doesn't matter. Now that we know he's, I don't know if he's 100%, but well enough to deal with it, I don't know where the concern is with him. I guess you could say, that they're 13 in defense in Ken Palm, but as Blake said a couple of these ago, look at who they played. I know that's supposed to be adjusted for opponents. I'm not sure it always picks that up. I mean, they're almost flawless.
Yeah, like Jones was saying, that his biggest concern is the defensive glass. Maybe some tricky games against a Florida or an A&M, but that was like we were just trying to find anything. I mean, you really got to dig and then compare it to like a really tough matchup that's the other team's strength to find a concern about this team right now. It's pretty remarkable.
I mean, looking at Ken Palm, they don't force a lot of turnovers, but there's a lot of really great defensive teams that's just not what they do. It's not how they guard. So It's not – I don't know that that's even a concern.
All right. There you have it. We got some –
Week 9.
Got some chats to get to, comments on the way out here. Here we go. Brian sums it up. We can all talk crap, but the reality be – I mean, teams are going to get exposed over the next couple of weeks. We'll see the contenders. We'll see the pretenders. It's going to happen. So take everything we said with a grain of salt. So, hey, Mississippi State fan, Fox Sports has you as a number 2 seed, then that's great. But, again, like, we're not going to push back all that much. Like, again, they're a 2, 3 seed, whatever. Like, they have the resume of it right now.
Right
so
there.
It's great. It's going to change for everybody as we head into SEC play. All right, back to Nathan earlier. By the way, you can join the It Just Means More tier here. We got very few super chats in this one. We're going to need a few more super chats from you guys. Come on. It's the new year. Help support the channel. But we'll get to one of those in a second. If you want to leave a super chat or join the It Just Means More tier, don't ask me how to do that. Just good luck. But go to the main page on the mobile if you are. Hit that join button. You can join. We got some members-only content really starting to ramp up starting this week and beyond. So Nathan wants to know if we ever thought about using our Southeastern 16 Kiss of Death to bet on the underdogs and win big every time. Maybe some of us are already doing that. Some of us are already maybe doing a few bets on the opposite of what they pick. I'm not gonna name names, but some of us may be doing that. Nathan also said that Lane Kiffin single-handedly makes him hate Ole Miss and wants him to lose forever. Well, that's, all right.
We're talking
Richard,
hoops.
a little bit more positive, Richard is, than Nathan. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's, guys. Hope you and your family has a great year, and go Big Orange. Yes, we appreciate you as always, Richard.
Merry Christmas, Richard.
And notable comment here. Rankings live is something else. Yeah, it's a different experience.
Is that Barry?
When you do it live. So that's not Chris. That's
not
clearly
Barry?
A cat. There's clearly a cat in that picture.
It's
not
big
a dog.
Dark blob.
My goodness.
I might need glasses.
If anyone has an eyeglass sponsor, trust me, I'll do a great read on that one. Justin wants to know, can Vandy finish better than 8-10 in the SEC?
Ooh. Where would they?
I think anything's possible at this point.
Okay, we're not going through all 18 games, but let me just quickly note, okay, here are their road games, all right? LSU, Missouri, Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas A&M, Georgia. That's just their road games, all right? And then let's just quickly do that. So Mississippi State, home. South Carolina, home. Tennessee, home. Kentucky, home. Texas, home. Auburn, home. Ole Miss, home. Missouri, home. Arkansas, home. Missouri twice. Tennessee twice. Who's the third team they play twice?
Kentucky.
Is it?
Kentucky.
Oh, yeah, Kentucky. Yep. So, I mean, sure they can, but I think it might be a challenge.
I mean, I think the key for them is that start. You go 2-3 between LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri. With LSU and Missouri being on the road, then maybe you've got. I think anything over. I could see 8-10. I think 9 or more just feels unrealistic. Tough. Insert your word here.
I don't know if I necessarily unrealistic. I think it's possible, but it's probably not the expectation. But again, we said that about don't look at us for guidance on these. South Carolina almost won the league last year, so I don't think we count anything out probably. So, anyways,
I think you also have to get either one of Tennessee or Kentucky at home coming up before the end of January,
which is possible.
It's
also going to be a matter of what are the wins and what are the losses. Like are you 7-11 but wins what you snagged Tennessee, you snagged Florida or something, or are you 8-10 but you didn't beat a single team in the top 5 of the league?
Are you talking about with respect to getting into the tournament?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how much that matters, honestly. I mean, I don't know, looking at what the committee has done recently, how much they look at that. Like, I'm thinking of when Arkansas got in 8-10 a couple of years ago. Was Auburn in that group too, where they got in 8-10?
Mississippi State, not Auburn.
Mississippi, and you started digging into the wins, and they weren't maybe great. This is all from memory. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I think the league is twice as tough now. Yeah. I just feel like you get to 8 and it almost may not matter because they're all going to be quad 1, quad 2 wins.
You're not wrong.
Maybe. We'll find out.
Interesting.
All right. Where does it go? Yeah. Elliot says Chris more of a monocle type guy. So we
I could use one right now.
That. All right. We're out of here on this one. $5 super chat from Mother Carol.
Nice.
Ooh.
What team will pull out the most upsets during conference play? Hit that like button if you think your team will win the SEC. I love that. Hit the like button if your team can win the league. All right. I love that from Mother Carol. Getting those likes up here on the live stream on a Monday morning. New year ahead. Team pull off the most upsets during conference play. I mean, if we're basing it on our rankings as they stand right now, I think Arkansas is the team that is lower down the rankings that I think can pull the most top-tier potential upsets.
We had Arkansas 9.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess technically you could say Missouri's already pulled an upset by beating the top team, so they could be in that category too. But really, I mean, there's so many potential options here. But I would say just based on our rankings, probably in Arkansas or Missouri seems like the most likely candidates for this criteria based on our rankings. So, but I mean,
know what's kind of incredible? Go ahead, Blake. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say but what is truly an upset this year? There's not probably a lot of those that we just view as huge upsets. So yeah.
As tough as this league is, I'm looking at Kim Palm's projected standings right now. They don't have anybody going worse than 6-12. Like with all the heavyweights in this league, that's kind of amazing.
I disagree.
Is somebody? Well, I'm with you. I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that as a statement about the strength from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I was going to say South Carolina. I think
you might be right.
Why
just
not?
Because I mean, you look at who they have at home, right? Just their quick home. Alabama, Auburn, Florida are their first 3 home games. If they sneak out one of those, I mean that's the biggest upset of that's the biggest upset of January. even though it's at home, just because the computers have South Carolina significantly lower than the top half, you go to South Carolina and lose, it's going to be considered for this league one of the bigger upsets.
Yep.
And South Carolina is going to win games at home. Okay, they're going to.
The weird thing is last year they lost 3 at home and 3 on the road in the regular season.
They already beat Clemson at home.
Yep.
So.
All right. Conference play is near. Starts on Saturday. Got a couple non-conference games to finish up these next couple days, and we'll have you covered as always. Our game predictions, really, the Southeastern 16 kiss of death, folks. It's time. This is that time of the year. We're thinking about what we've done in the non-conference. That means nothing now, because now we get into the true meaningful predictions and previews for conference games. So your bribes are accepted when it comes to whether you want us to place the Southeastern 16 kiss of death on your team or not. Now is when it really matters. So, we will have predictions for every single game on Saturday. Some of those will be in separate videos. Some of those will be jumbled into one video. But we'll keep you updated. We may do some of them live. We'll let you know what the plan is for the week. We'll have bracketology, kind of a weekly thing we're going to start doing as well. We started that last week with Max and I, so we'll do that. And we might have something else exciting for you on Friday to potentially get you geared up for the start of conference play on Saturday. My goodness. You're going to be
Big
wagging
week.
your tail like Barry.
Big week.
Ooh. The
All
tingling
right.
has already begun.
Good to be back with you guys. It's nice to
Great to be back.
be away from the keyboard from a week. I needed that, but cannot wait for SEC play. Getting ready for baseball stuff, doing my preseason research on that. Keeping an eye on football. A lot of stuff going on around here. Thank you to all of you who were here today. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year ahead. For Max Barr, Blake Lovell, God bless you all. I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching us here at Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.